I really want to have children one day. My parents look at me and they're like, what are you doing? Like, you are getting old and you can't be popping out kids when you're like 50. What are you waiting for? I say things like, listen, I am trying to build a career. Where am I going to put it? Okay, I live in an apartment in Brooklyn with a roommate. All right, like the cat is already too much. Like, that's, all of these things that I take into consideration. And they're like, but what are you talking about? You just have kids and then you figure it out. We never worried about any of that. But looking back at how they had kids, in Cuba, there's always a neighbor who can babysit for you without questions asked. In Cuba, if you're running late from work, your tia or your tío or whoever else is living in the house with you is going to pop in downstairs, make sure your kid has done his homework and already got fed and is watching muñequitos. There are a lot of other resources to help you with your child rearing things. There's El Círculo Infantil, which, you could argue is kind of like a daycare, but hello, have you looked at daycare prices? It's basically a mortgage and a half, and just the price of actually giving birth in a hospital. Like, it's freaking crazy. They didn't have to worry about that. You don't just pop them out and then they're there, And maybe I'm wrong. I've never had children. But those are the things I'm thinking about. Even when we agree on some of the things that constitute the dream, they're still like, but why can't you just do it? And I'm like, I am walking a different walk.
We are presenting this tension between us and our parents, this tension between various visions of the American dream. This is at the crux of why we've been having these conversations in this podcast. We are out here trying to understand ourselves and our community. How do we find commonality? How do we open ourselves up to the diversity of experiences that exist between Cuban Americans? Because here we are, having been born in Cuba, brought out of Cuba when we were very, very young, but surrounded in Miami by people who have stories and stories and stories about this, parents who are traumatized by their experiences in Cuba. We were stripped of the opportunity to live in Cuba, while we were also saved from Cuba. I think it's a difficult line to walk.
Most of our lived experiences are here in the US, in this very specific box, which we're going to call the hyphen, being Cuban-American. Going back to the anecdote that I started this off with of the day that I decided that I was going to move to South Korea. Despite criticizing me and having some very difficult and tough conversations, the first chance they got, my dad at least popped up to South Korea, and then I had to tote my dad around all over Seoul and be like, okay, listen, you can't read anything on the menu, but I got you. You're gonna eat some bibimbap. ¿Qué es eso? Arroz con picadillo. So I think at the end of the day, and I think, Fryda, your parents are also super, super supportive as well in their own ways.
They are thrilled to be able to go on the journey of watching us live out completely different lives than they would ever be able to live out. Anyone who leaves behind everything that our parents left behind to come to a very unfamiliar setting to restart their lives, that takes a lot of courage and grit. What they did also helps inspire us. A lot of times I'm just like, my parents did this. They started over here. I can start over. I can do this again. You can only go up. I would love to hear from our listeners, how your vision for the future and your life differs from the expectations that your family had, whether you migrated over from another country or you come from a very different upbringing. It's always so cool to think about the ways that we often transcend the expectations that our parents have of us.
So that being said, this episode was meant to be about the Cuban-American dream. Our parents are a very big part of our lives. You know that as the child of an immigrant, your purpose in life is to validate their struggles. I'm so grateful for my parents and your parents, Fryda, and all of the immigrant parents out there who just want to be able to dream and want their children to be able to dream. This one goes out to all of you. Shout out. And with that, we're going to get into our cubanismo. Fryda, what's the cubanismo?
Carmen, no cojas lucha, que la vida es mucha.
So don't sweat it, because life is too long to be sweating it.
This is our recommendation. This is the Cuban recommendation for how to live out that life. Enjoy it and take it easy, you know? So, yeah, we are taking a little bit of time to be able to do more research, plan out for season 2. We're still going to be active in all the other ways that we're active.
On social media, we'll still be doing our cafecitos on Wednesdays.
We want to continue to build community with all of you. It's been amazing to be able to be a part of this. And if you are our patron, we'll be releasing one more little episode, a hot take episode for you all to enjoy while we're having this little hiatus.
Thank you everyone so much for coming on this journey with us, for all of your support. A big shout out to Jessie. You have rocked our design world. Couldn't do it without you. And a big shout out to our supporters, Jose, Susan, Celia, Catherine, Lauren, Kaylee, Amaudi, Kristen, Sarah, Suli, Karina, Jason, Nick, Daniel, Josh, Yvette, Kellis, Nasim, Fryda's mom, Carmen's dad.
Yes, they're donors too. We hope you'll tune in for next season. Remember, you can check us out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We are at TakeItEasyPod. And feel free to email us at takeiteasypod@gmail.com.
Besitos. Take it easy.